It's now been documented. A UN panel accuses North Korea of systematically committing crimes against humanity. Pyongyang dismisses the allegations, calling them fabricated and invented. So what should the international community do with this information? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Shihab Ratansi. A year-long UN investigation into rights abuses in North Korea was finally published on Monday. The report is the highest-profile attempt to investigate long-standing claims of unspeakable atrocities. North Korea categorically denies any human rights abuses, saying it's just an excuse cooked up by the UN to justify regime change. But defectors from the country talk of torture, enslavement, sexual violence, and severe political repression. James Bays has more.
A North Korean defector, Ji-han Park, weeps as she recalls the repression her family faced before she escaped. Public hearings were held in 4 cities on 3 continents. Many other witnesses asked for their identities to be withheld. There have been many investigations into human rights in North Korea, but never one as comprehensive as this. Getting a clear picture of what goes on in the secretive state, where people cope with extreme deprivation and starvation, is very difficult. The International Commission of Inquiry finds there's massive repression, torture, execution, systematic rape and abduction of foreigners. Many of these count as crimes against humanity, all a part of a planned system of political control. North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, recently executed his uncle, once the second most powerful man in the country, and a number of other relatives. Kim, aged just 31, took over from his late father just over 2 years ago. But the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry has written a letter to him. In it, he says his commission will recommend the UN refer the situation in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that's the country's official name, to the International Criminal Court to render all those, including possibly yourself, who may be responsible for crimes against humanity.
No one will be able to say in the future, if only we'd known about North Korea, as they said after the Second World War, if only we'd known. Well, now everyone will know, and it will be available in our report, and it is a wake-up signal to the world and hopefully to the leaders in North Korea.
The Commission of Inquiry may want to see senior figures in North Korea face international justice, but it does not have the power to make that happen. This hard-hitting report will be presented to the UN Human Rights Council in about a month's time, and they will then pass it to the UN General Assembly. But neither of those bodies has the power to refer things to the International Criminal Court. Only the Security Council can do that, and that's where North Korea's long-term ally China has a veto. An international court case seems a distant prospect, but this report, backed with the weight of the UN, perhaps brings it a little closer. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations in Geneva.
Well, North Korea has responded to the UN findings, saying it categorically and totally rejects the report, which it says is an, quote, instrument of a political plot aimed at sabotaging the socialist system, end quote, and defaming the country. Victims of North Korea's government also spoke to Amnesty International about what they'd experienced.
The first public execution I had to witness happened to be my classmate's brother-in-law. The first bullet hit his head strap and the brain and blood splattered. People screamed in horror and the crowd roared. It's so gruesome, you instinctively close your eyes or turn your head away. When all the gunshots had died down, you looked and the body was heaped on the ground. You can't sleep after witnessing it.
It's a place that would make your hair stand on end. No word would help you to understand what this place is like. When my parents starved to death, I didn't have coffins for them. I wrapped their bodies with straw, carried them on my back, and went to bury them myself. I lost all my family.
For more on this, I'm joined by our 3 guests. From Boston, Sung-Yoon Lee, Assistant Professor of Korean Studies at Tufts University. From Exeter, Aidan Foster Carter, an Honorary Research Fellow of Modern Korean Studies at Leeds University. Aidan, writes extensively for The Guardian newspaper on Korea. And joining us from Hanoi on Skype, director and producer Matt Doljanczyk, who recently made a documentary from the DPRK in North Korea. Aidan Foster Carter, first of all, no surprises perhaps in this report, but certainly more texture on our understanding of the brutality of the North Korean regime. What did you make of it?
Well, it's a very useful summary of a lot of things which actually, if you are following the field, you would know already. The days are long gone when North Korea was complete terra incognita, was complete darkness in terms of human rights. That was the case for a long time. It was a big bother to Amnesty International back in the days when South Korea was a dictatorship a while ago, that you could know what was happening in South Korea, whose fingernail was being pulled out where, whereas North Korea was almost a complete blank. That is no longer the case. We've had a lot of substantial reports from NGOs like Human Rights in North Korea and a number of others. We've also had first-person testimonies. There's about half a dozen Gulag survivor memoirs now. But the great advantage of the UN report, of course, it puts the UN stamp on it, and it brings this information together, harrowing as it is.
Sung-Yoon Lee, though, the North Korean responses, this is all fabricated evidence aimed at regime change, predictable perhaps, but actually, out of interest, are there methodological issues